From the 1st of September 2021, unleaded petrol is changing. So what I have here is some E5 petrol, which contains 5% bioethanol. From the 1st of September, the minimum standard will change to E10, more ethanol. So what does that actually mean for the classic car world? There are a lot of people very, very concerned at the moment. Is that concern justified? To be honest, I can't really tell you. There's lots of theories that it's going to destroy rubber, perhaps brass components, and that you will have to retune your engine. But the truth is, I think until we start getting a bit more long-term testing, I don't think we're really going to know. It's kind of like when leaded fuel was phased out in the 1980s, or was it the early 90s? There were lots of concerns then. Were old cars going to be able to run okay on it? And to be honest, I think we've largely found that it doesn't make a fat lot of difference. The cars behind me, both of these and my Citroen 2CV, have the benefit of having alloy heads, all alloy engines. Alloy heads tend to have hardened valve seats as standard because the aluminium isn't really strong enough, so they're able to handle leaded fuel. But for many years I ran a Mini with an all-iron 1 litre A-series engine. An engine notorious for valve seat recession, but what was causing the valve seat recession was extended periods of hard use. If you were just using the car gently, then those valve seats were going to last a very long time, thousands of miles without any issue at all, and no need to panic. So we decided not to go to the bother of changing the cylinder head for one that was unleaded compatible. We thought we'll just carry on using it, and when we have to deal with it, we have to deal with it. And I think that's going to be the approach I'm going to be using with E10 as well, to be honest. I'm not a scientist, I can't say what effect it's going to have because I don't know, and I don't think anyone's going to know until we start using it. I've got friends in North America who have been happily using E10 for years with no ill effects, but we've got other people saying, well, it's definitely going to cause issues. I will say, already I think we're seeing that even the small ethanol content is making rubber degrade. There's a combination of factors. Some of the rubber tubing, rubber pipes you get on the market are made out of terrible rubber and don't last. But also I think the ethanol does eat the pipes and make them more likely to break up and fracture. So we are seeing quite a lot of car fires already on classic cars that could be avoided just because the petrol hose is degrading. So I think it's essential with all your old cars to keep an eye on the hose. I had to replace some on my Citroen 2CV before going to Croatia last year because I could see that it was starting to degrade. It's your responsibility as classic car owners to look at the state of the pipes in your engines, especially if those pipes are going over the engine. Quite a lot of cars, you've got a feed coming up to the carburetor or the fuel injection system. If that degrades and starts spraying petrol all over the hot engine, well, you don't need a great imagination to see what's going to happen next. And that is for you to check. Don't expect your garage, your MOT tester to necessarily pick up on it. They should, but you know, there's a year between MOTs. A lot of old cars are not having MOTs at all now. They're not a requirement here in the UK. If your vehicle is over 40 years old, you don't need an MOT. But you need to be checking that. And it's all well and good saying, oh, well, I'll carry a fire extinguisher, but if a car catches fire, it's going to go up, and if it's fiberglass like this, it's really going to go up. So you have to check these things, and it's very important, and it will be just as important going forward. I don't think we can say whether it's going to have a problem on the internal parts of a carburetor yet. We're just going to have to wait and see. But it's not like carburetors are just going to fail overnight. We will start seeing issues developing, perhaps. Maybe brass components will break up, and so your car will start running rough. We're just going to have to bite the bullet and see what happens. There is a lot of talk about using super unleaded. Some super unleaded will be E5 standard continued going forward. So even while we've got E10 on 95 octane, that's our standard here in the UK. The 97, 98 and even 99 super unleaded has not got that requirement. That said, I've seen a release, I think it was from Esso, saying that in places like, well, more rural parts, so like the southwest of England, the north of England, Wales, even the super unleaded is likely to be to the E10 standard. And around here in Wales, I can't even get super unleaded. I've got to drive to Aberystwyth or Cardigan, They're both getting on for 20 miles away just to refuel with a different type of fuel. And even then, there's no guarantee that that super unleaded will definitely only be E5. So I'm just going to use the new fuel and see what happens. I think that's what all of us can do. I will say, with cars I'm taking off the road for an extended period, I will be tempted to use something like a fuel stabilizer. This is one kindly supplied to me by Liquimoly. So when I went away to the other side of the world for 5 months, they sent me some of that so I could put it in all the cars and stop the fuel going off. And I believe it would also counter the effects of the ethanol from a storage point of view, because ethanol encourages the absorption of water, so you get more condensation in the fuel tank. That is going to be an issue, and is why you definitely need to be using fuel filters on your cars, because you might get the internals of the tank degrading where it's a steel tank like this one, or this one, to be fair. That could be an issue, so we need to watch out for that. But yeah, we're going to have to respond. We can't stop this happening. It's going to happen, rightly or wrongly, and I'm not getting into the specifics of that. That's a different argument for someone else's channel. I can see why they're doing it. I don't know if it's the right thing. Personally, I think we should be all trying to travel less and reduce our use of fuel that way, rather than just changing the type of fuel. Anyway, well, I said I wasn't going to discuss it, so let's move on from that. So it really is a case of we're just going to have to suck it and see, and it's going to be interesting to see what effects it has. I will obviously be covering any side effects I find on my fleet in upcoming videos. I don't know which of my cars are actually compatible with E10 fuel. The Matiz might be, I don't know, and all the older cars almost certainly not. So it's going to be interesting times. But like I say, you know, there was lots of doom mongering when leaded fuel was phased out. Everyone's saying you've got to use lead replacement petrol, you've got to use additives. My approach is usually just to suck it and see. Let's see what happens. The bits that are going to degrade don't cost necessarily very much to replace. So we'll just see. I will quickly mention two-strokes. There's some talk that the higher ethanol content will stop two-stroke oil mixing properly. So that's something you do have to bear in mind if you've got a two-stroke engine. So hopefully all my Wartburg and Trabant owning friends will be fine. That is a concern. But again, chucking in an additive may solve that issue. I don't know. I haven't been able to test it. I'm not a scientist. Maybe I should get a two-stroke vehicle and then I can test it. Yes, that seems logical. More vehicles, always the answer. So there you go. You were probably hoping for a really solid, yes, this is good, yes, this is bad answer. But really, I don't think there is one. We're just going to have to see. But we are not the first people to be using ethanol-laden fuels in the world. Far from it. You know, places like Brazil, they were running on pretty much pure ethanol for a very long time, using Volkswagen Beetles and all sorts. So it may be the aftermarket world has to step in and supply some parts that allow the conversion effectively to run more ethanol. And yeah, we've got to watch those fuel lines and for condensation in the tank, in which case a stabilizer is probably an idea if you're storing a car over winter. But otherwise, yeah, bring it on. Let's see what happens. I don't think life is going to get easier for old cars going forward. I think it's going to get harder. We've got low emission zones creeping in all around the UK now. Birmingham has gone live. Manchester is set to follow next year. London obviously has had its low emission zone for a while now. So we will find the cars we love, the cars that are the bread and butter of HubNut, becoming less and less welcome in places. And I'm afraid that's kind of how it goes. What the solution will be going forward, I don't know. I don't want to jump into a brand new car. I want to carry on driving old cars. But we'll just have to wait and see what happens there as well. It's not practical to expect everyone to suddenly buy a brand new car. And the wastage that would be generated if people did actually all ditch their old cars, it'd be staggering. We're far better off using the cars and perhaps using them sparingly. I'm quite prepared to use public transport in a city and stay well away from the centre, because who wants to drive in the city centre anyway? It's awful. But yeah, for us people out in the sticks here, I don't think the emissions of our cars are doing any great harm at all. We're surrounded by trees and nature, and really there's not enough jobs out in these rural parts to justify everyone swapping to a brand new car. So interesting times ahead. And I'm going to wrap this one up there. But yeah, am I panicking about E10? Absolutely not. Am I curious to see what potential side effects there could be? Definitely. But yeah, the onus is on us. We want to carry on driving these old cars. We've got to look after them. There you go. I hope that's answered some questions or given some reassurance or something. We'll see what happens. And I look forward to seeing you in a future video. And later this year, we will be putting E10 to the test. Farewell.